Welcome back to the Legal Lead Shark podcast, where high-growth law firms and the marketers who power them come to sharpen their edge. If you're obsessed with leads, conversions, and building law firms that dominate your market, you're in the right place. We go deep with the top minds in legal marketing, from agency owners and tech founders to intake pros and PPC legends to the next generation of law firm owners who are making waves, uncovering the strategies, tools, and mindsets to turn more clicks into signed cases. I'm your host, Kaylee Terrazas. Today's guest is not here to play it safe. Jimmy Goff is a straight-talking second-generation personal injury attorney out of Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, who's making waves for all the right and risky reasons. Let me tell you, he's not here to make friends with law firms who are crossing the line. He grew up in the legal trenches and swore he would never follow in his parents' footsteps until he couldn't ignore the broken pieces of the system anymore. After years of working for insurance defense firms, where he saw exactly how claims got lowballed and injuries got dismissed, he launched Goff Law to fight back. Since then, he's been recognized by Best Lawyers, Ones to Watch, and Super Lawyers Rising Stars, while building a solo firm that takes on wrongful death, product liability, and complex injury cases. But what really sets Jimmy apart isn't just the win, it's the fact that he's speaking out loudly against the dark side of personal injury law: client poaching, illegal solicitations, kickbacks, and shady marketing that's giving the whole profession a black eye. Most lawyers stay quiet, Jimmy doesn't. Today we're talking about Barratry, blurred ethic lines, tort reform, and what it really takes to fight with integrity in a space that's too often driven by greed. Jimmy, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Good afternoon, Kaylee. Good to be here.
This is going to be an exciting and hot conversation. I think we're going to rattle some tail feathers here, and I hope to see it in the comments below, because we're going to just hit right into some juicy topics. But before we do, Jimmy, tell us a little about yourself. I know you actually from DFW. My husband and I are from there. We're in Oklahoma City now, so we're neighbors, and we've kind of talked offline, but I know one part of your story is you swore you would never follow in your parents' footsteps, who were both attorneys, and then here you are. So tell us a little bit about why and then what got you here.
Yeah, so my mom always did personal injury. My dad did insurance defense in Oklahoma City, then moved to Dallas when he met my mom, and it seemed miserable. Constantly stressed. I remember my mom having bank statements on the table of the line of credit. It just seemed not a lot of fun. So I was really into sports, except I couldn't play any of them. I was a horrible athlete, god awful. And so I went to Kansas for sports management, thinking, okay, I'll be this Jerry Maguire type figure. Went and worked in Colorado for USA Rugby. Had a great time. I loved it. I had a great internship, but kind of realized these athletes really don't care about you. And the agents that make money or have an impact, there's like three guys. So I just kind of had this gut feeling. Then I applied to work at one of my best friends at the time. His dad ran an insurance industry, so I was going to go be an adjuster. And I was like, well, maybe I'll go to Wall Street. Maybe I want to do something bigger or more interesting. And so I just moved back home, worked for a homeless foundation for a little while, and then applied to law school. And then I had to literally beg the dean to let me in.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. So you got through law school and then you followed in your mom's footsteps. Well, actually you didn't. You didn't go straight into personal injury, right?
Right. So I started with a boutique commercial litigation firm because my mom had started doing a bunch of business tort cases. And I was like, well, that looks interesting and not as stressful. So I worked for a very well-known lawyer, Jeff Tillotson, had the time of my life, but his clients were these giant, massive companies like AT&T or big rich people. And they don't want little old me, first-year lawyer, taking depots. And I'd clerked for a year in a federal court before that, but I was still a baby lawyer. So I went and worked for an insurance defense firm here in Dallas and just absolutely loved it. Had the time of my life.
Awesome. And then that led you to another kind of part of your story, which was you got to see, if I'm not mistaken, the reverse side, right? So you were fighting against personal injury lawyers on the insurance side. Is that right?
Right. So I did a lot of work for USAA and I really enjoyed it. I didn't have the typical experience that most personal injury lawyers that are ex-defense lawyers of, I just got sick of representing these bad people. I mean, I got sick of the adjusters. They're really who messes up our business, but that's a whole nother story. But I just saw so many bad plaintiffs lawyers, really, really bad plaintiffs lawyers that wouldn't know their client's name, wouldn't know when the crash occurred, or even when they had great cases and just sit on them for 2 years. And it just drove me crazy. It just drove me crazy.
So that kind of led you to flipping sides, if you will. And now you've been in personal injury for quite a a while. In today's topic, we're going to get deep into what I think everybody wants to know more about. And you've probably seen it more than most because you've been around as a child in this industry. So I'm sure your mom has experienced this as well. But Dallas, Fort Worth, or Texas in general is a big state for this, from my understanding. And we just saw a post on LinkedIn this morning from a Georgia personal injury lawyer who said the same thing. So I think it's a countrywide thing as well. But before we hop into that, so you've been very vocal about Barratry, mass tort reform, and stuff like that. Let's hit into that a little bit more. So in Texas, it's a hot topic. Why is it happening? What do you think is the reason behind so many lawyers getting away with this in the dark side of personal injury law?
Well, it plays right into the tort reformers' hands, which is what we dealt with all this summer here in Texas, the most aggressive tort reform that's ever been pursued in the country that I've seen. I've been obsessed with tort reform since I was 8 years old, which is really weird, but I've always just been fascinated with that subject. But it arises because everybody views personal injury lawyers as ambulance chasers. I mean, that's the most common phrase we're referred to as in movies, is ambulance chasers, or sleazy or slimy. And the insurance companies have done a perfect job of selling that. And it doesn't help that there's attorneys in this state and other states that actively engage in it. Part of the problem is that there's no punishment, a real punishment mechanism. There's no incentive. Now, luckily in Texas, thanks to the work of Jack Walker, Charlie Ginn, and others, there used to be a $10,000 fine for Barratry. They just upped it to $50K thanks to those guys lobbying in the legislature and working really hard, because it's the good lawyers, the good folks that hate Barratry, because the lawyers that are going to commit Barratry, they're going to cheat somewhere else in your case. And that's what it is, just cheating. But because the punishment used to be $10,000, why wouldn't you do it? I mean, in some of these cases, Kaylee, you've seen, you could settle a case for $25-50 million. And if I get slapped on the wrist with $10,000 and maybe attorney's fees, if I get caught, where I could set up my family and my great grandchildren for generations, you'd be kind of stupid not to do it. If, unless you have a conscience, obviously, and you're taking advantage of people in the worst moments of their life, that's another thing. But there's so many different sides to it. But the number one thing is there's a lack of punishment. Also because the DAs don't want to pursue criminal charges because it is a felony. You can go to jail or get a big fine for Barratry, but the DAs don't want to pursue it because it's not a sexy crime. And then if I am a lawyer that commits Barratry, but I refer the case out, the attorney receiving the case gets a huge case, and he doesn't want that to end, because oftentimes, if referral receiving attorney gets a huge case but doesn't want to ask where it came from, that's a problem too, because then everybody's making money. But who really suffers? It's the clients, then our reputation as lawyers in general, and then society ultimately pays the price, because there's a lot of people that'll just say, well, I'm not going to hire a lawyer, period.
Yeah. And marketing is doing this too. So I do Google ads for client, and I do it ethically and I do it directly. And we've talked offline. We won't name any names, but we've talked offline about lawyers that will go through lead generation agencies who are basically doing the same thing. And again, to your point, they don't want to turn away a huge case, but they're also not going to ask where it came from, So if it ties back into that, and we know marketing firms that are doing that on the backside too, and it's the same crime, it's basically been accepted. I don't know. It's not being pursued. I saw, again, just to speak back to the LinkedIn post today, another lawyer chimed in under him and said, what can we do about this? And honestly, it's nothing unless there's enough voices speaking out against people. The marketing agency that we were talking about and that we know about, I forget what you said, but one of your attorney friends was taken for $100,000 or more by this agency, which is another red flag, because just like you said earlier, someone willing to cheat, someone willing to break the rules is willing to do it across the board, not just to help you, but against you too. And so that's why it's important to work with people with integrity. Otherwise, it backfires, and $100,000 or $300,000 later, you have nothing to show for it. Right. And,
The other problem is with the pay-per-lead system is you as the lawyer could be buying leads without knowing that the marketing company is committing Barratry. Boom, you get yourself sued, and you don't know. Yep. And now your reputation is damaged. You don't know how to bounce back. I think there's really one way. There's two ways I think you approach it. I think the state bar has to create a criminal task force, or the legislature has to create a division where there's district attorneys in all major metropolitan cities that are, young district attorneys that pursue Barratry. I mean, it wouldn't be that hard, but you're going to tie up cops. You're going to tie up businessmen. You're going to tie up lawyers, a lot of whom are very powerful. A lot of lawyers have strong political ties or might contribute to certain parties more than others or certain individual candidates or representatives. And that's what I see. I think no lawyer wants to go to jail. I mean, lawyers, especially the rich PI lawyers, maybe they'll lose money and they can live with it. But ain't no lawyer going in a cell. And maybe that's the way to do it. But you could argue, well, that's too harsh of a punishment if you did it unknowing. But that's why we have trials too.
Yeah. You pull the thread and you see how far up it goes, because it is often a very tangled web. Yeah. And the marketing agency that we were referring to is a multi-million-dollar, I think it's an 8-figure firm agency. So I don't know. Do your due diligence. And again, when I work with law firms, I work directly with you. I work with your Google Ads account. You're paying for and getting what you get, and there's no behind the curtain. And I think that's the safest way to do it. I get a lot of personal injury, especially. It is a outrageously expensive game to play on Google. I get that. And it takes a massive investment just to step onto the court with the other players.
Right.
So I can see the draw into buying the pay per lead kind of a deal. But I have yet in my entire career, and if you know of someone, email me. Let me know. If you know of someone doing it ethically, let me know. I'd love to know. But I have never heard of a marketing agency, a pay per lead agency, that there wasn't some shady stuff going on. Whether it was contracts are written weird and then now you're screwed out of $200,000 and you have no cases when you were promised X amount of case, or more often than not, a bunch of shady stuff's going on with their intake or where they're getting the leads. And it's not safe to think, oh, well, I'm not going to look into it. I mean, at the end of the day, you're still going to be tied to it. So I agree 100%. There has to be a consequence. Like with anything, if there's not a consequence to something, then why wouldn't you do it? A $10,000 slap on the wrist. Okay. But a $50,000, you lose your license and you're potentially going to jail. It's a little bit more to chew on before you make those kind of decisions. So
I think you need to ask, a lot of lawyers don't know this. You can ask to see the ad copy that your marketing agency is running. Like if they're running Facebook ads, ask to see them, because there's a lot of Facebook ads that are complete fraud saying, hey, here's a 30-second evaluation. You get a check the next day or within 30 days. Fraud doesn't exist. There's an ad, new compensation program 2025 for accident victims. Doesn't exist. It's fraud. All these ads are doing is sending you to a lawyer in their network, which isn't bad. That's not my problem. The problem is the initial ad is lying to people and running around with giant checks that have tape on them and aren't even real. But you have the ability as the lawyer to say, hey, let me see the ad. And if the agency won't show you the ad, that's a pretty big red flag to me. And the other thing is, although KLE might be expensive, think about it this way. I get a lead via Barratry. Okay. Now I could get hit with 50 grand. Now I could lose the attorney's fees. Then I could also be reported to the state bar, or I pay KLE that equivalent amount and it could definitely get some leads and good leads. So you're going to pay for it one way or the other.
In an account you own. See, I tell people this all the time. There is no magic trick. Like all of these agencies, pay per lead or it's really pay per case, but they can't say that legally. So let's say pay per lead. They will tell you there's some magical secret sauce they're using and that's how they're getting it. There's not, friends. It's knowing how Google Ads, it looks like an easy game to play. You put up an ad, you put in some money, you turn it on. And people are like, oh, I can do that. That's easy. No. That's like opening the hood to something and seeing 50,000 levers that you're like, holy shit, what the hell is this?
Right.
So there is a lot of strategy that goes into it, but there's no secret strategy. The way that you write the ad copies to differentiate yourself is going based off of the value of that law firm, and the secret sauce or personal injury goat of the industry of the personal injury law firm. Mike Morris calls it being a Cherry Garcia in a vanilla marketing. Right. Yes, exactly. That's absolutely secret sauce, and being able to put that together, but them telling you they're not going to show you the ads because there's something proprietary about it, red flag, 100%. The second thing, really quick, just to piggyback off that on a little marketing tangent here, is if you're buying leads from someone else, Google and Facebook are machine. Essentially, they're AI machine. And the more money you put into the machine and the better you train it, the smarter it gets. And that's why some law firms, Google Ads or Facebook is a money printing machine for them. It's because over a long period of time, they've trained this machine to know exactly who they're looking for. But if you're buying those cases from another agency that has this secret sauce they're not going to show you, essentially what you're doing is that'd be like me investing in your 401k, Jimmy, or your IRA. Like I'm putting my money into your investment account. And then, you may give me a little bit, while I'm feeding your investment account. And then I stop feeding it and you got all of the benefits and I got nothing. It's not a smart marketing play, but also, a lot of people hide behind there's something secret. Yeah, it's called fraud. It's called illegal activity. That's what the secret is,
Yeah.
So I got on a little bit of a marketing tangent there. So, and that's what I would call the dark side of marketing for PI. And there is the same thing that's going on the legal side for the lawyers is going on the marketing side. And that's giving our agencies a black eye, just like it is you guys. So in one of the podcast interviews I listened to you with you, I'm going to talk a little bit marketing, branding, et cetera. We're going to segue. One of the things that you said earlier is ambulance chaser. And I 100% agree. And one of the podcasts I listened to, you talk on, the thing that stuck out to me was changing the narrative. And when you've got big people or a lot of money doing bad things or doing the wrong things, then it gives the whole industry a black eye. And that's kind of what's happened in the public's eye. And I had years ago, my dad got into an accident, commercial vehicle. He was in a commercial vehicle. He was hit by a commercial vehicle, had a lot of medical bills and all of this stuff. It was just a complete disaster, and he's a blue collar worker, welder, and he's like good old country boy. He basically didn't want to go with an attorney, even though the insurance, it was 6 months and 100 documents, and they were still denying his claim. He had to get a notarized document from his company saying he actually made that much money. So he got the notarized document, and then the insurance company said, there's no way that this is real. And so he finally hires an attorney, and within 2 days, the attorney had the case closed, which thankfully for them,
great.
my dad had done all the work for him. He just needed power behind it. And the insurance company calls begging him, no, we'll talk to you. He's like, too late, speak to my attorney. But I asked my dad, what took you so long? Why would you? He said, even with vertigo, even with not being able to work for 6 months, even with my truck totaled, the worst part of that whole process was dealing with the insurance company. They were a nightmare and they were horrible. He's like, I feel like I have PTSD from that. And I said, what took you so long? Why did you wait 6 months? And in his mind, he said, well, personal injury lawyers are like sharks. They're out for blood and this and that. And so let's talk a little bit about marketing and PI and changing the narrative there. So I'm gonna let you speak to that, since that's kind of your topic.
I think, one of the things I love, there's a local lawyer here named Michael Uvalde, very successful. He goes by Law Boss. He was a very, very big advertiser. One thing he did that I thought was really, really cool is he ran an ad that said ambulance chasing is illegal. Don't do it. And he literally filmed a podcast, and his 30-second clip is ambulance chasing is illegal. You can sue for it. And he ran it with no intent to make money or anything. We need to have more lawyers do that. But the other side of it is we have no one to blame but ourselves in regards to why can't we beat the ambulance chaser or the sleazy plaintiff's lawyer portrayed in the movies? Because what's the first thing we all do when we get a big check? Go buy a Lamborghini, go buy a new suit. I'm saying all attorneys do that. And some really great attorneys set up charities, which is amazing. That's what we got to do more of. And we're not telling the public all the good we're doing. Like, I'll give you an example, which is one of my goals this year, is to really expand this onto YouTube. And one of the lessons I learned over the summer is you have companies like Monsanto or Bayer selling Roundup, okay? Roundup kills people. Glyphosate kills people. Okay. But what are they doing right now? They're going into state legislatures banning lawsuits over glyphosate in Roundup. You know how evil that is? I mean, think about that. I sell a product that poisons people. A bunch of different jury verdicts come out saying I poisoned people, give them non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. But instead of fixing the product, I'm going to go to all the different states throughout the country and say, no, I'm allowed to keep doing it and no one's allowed to sue me for it. But think of the personal injury lawyers who brought those cases for free on their own dime until the case sells, if they get paid, which they're lucky if they get paid on some of these mass torts. We don't tell anybody about that. We're not on the radio. We're not on TV. And there's a reason we're not on TV. But I think YouTube is our platform to show the public, look at all this stuff we're uncovering. Like Mike Papantonio does a great job of, he'll talk about corporate emails in some of these cases. And he'll show you the emails. They're horrible, but they won't run them on TV. But we can on YouTube. So I think that personal injury lawyers, we need to market ourselves as more than billboard, big check, get paid. But it's easier to do that. And what does our customer base want? Our customer base wants either to get paid or to get healthier. And our only real ability to solve the client's problem is ultimately to get them a check. But we reinforce the issue of plaintiffs' lawyers are just money hungry, greedy bastards when you're driving down the street and every billboard is money. So it's kind of a evolving circle. A self-fulfilling prophecy is the word.
Yeah.
So I just think, and I might be wrong. I don't know if you can ever beat it because the insurance companies are much better at advertising than we are and will always have more money. Always.
Yeah.
We're never going to be able to compete with them money wise. They can never compete with us story wise. We saw that this summer, but we can never compete with them money wise. I mean, they have the celebrities, they have TV actors. You know, you got Jake from State Farm, you got Mayhem. You ask 100 people what's the phrase "you're in good hands" from, they could tell you. But you say, what's Jim Adler's slogan in Texas? You might get a couple people, but a majority of them won't remember.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And on the topic of Monsanto's, they have studies that show the umbilical cords of babies being born with disease because of that. And that sounds a lot like so Jason and I, in our personal time, nerd out on health and longevity and stuff. So I know all of these random facts about it.
That's
but
how
it
you
sounds
both
a
look
lot.
so young, for the record.
Thank you. But it sounds a lot like what the sugar companies did and Coke and stuff back in the day by paying a Harvard study to say that this was good and that was bad and deflecting from the fact that this is basically poisoning your body. This is addictive, all of the stuff. They just had more money and they were crushing people who were trying to fight for people's rights and people's health, you know, and
Right.
people can't understand why this little 3-year-old baby's dying of cancer. Well, I mean, it's written all over the food system and there are people trying to help us and trying to fight it. But to your point, nobody really knows about or hears these stories. And I think with
Right.
YouTube, you do have a chance to change the narrative. Again, even in your marketing story, I call it story selling and marketing, telling a story to sell yourself. The number one way to hit people is with a story. And so I heard a personal injury lawyer on LinkedIn did this great. It was a 1.5-minute video. And he said, my elderly client was on vacation and she didn't expect to have an unsafe hotel room and she slipped and broke her hip. So then you're thinking, well, what happened in the hotel room? And then you're also thinking, what do I need to look out for in hotel rooms that are unsafe? And of course, he set the storyline up better in the plot, but he hooked them in right in the middle of the story. And then he shared how the maintenance was uncovered that they had maintenance requests in for other people had complained about it being slippery. This elderly woman broke her hip really bad. Big settlement that they won. Amazing. Tell the story because it may or may not ever be applicable to me, but it made me stop and watch it. And then also it makes me know, like, and trust this lawyer to think, oh, if I ever have anything, I need to call him. If I ever, and that's the point of your marketing. It isn't, if you were injured in a car accident, blah, 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 which is what everyone's doing. I'm like, tell us who was injured in a car accident, what happened.
Right.
And even better, if you can get their voice and some clips of them in there and make this whole thing come to life as this is a real person. My friends.
There's also little things too. Like one thing I'd bring up is on Monsanto specifically, and I'm such a nerd, I went and did this, was Brett Weisner, who was one of the lead plaintiffs lawyers, tried one of the first Monsanto cases, uploaded all the depositions. And I went and watched all of them, of him cross-examining the scientists from Monsanto. He literally shows the bribes they are giving to members of the EPA, text messages of grabbing cocktails with the experts at Monsanto when the EPA is supposed to be regulating these people. And all Brett did was upload the deposition so the public can see it. I mean, I don't think people truly understand like how deep and corrupt parts of the health of this country go. And it's scary. And the lawyers, subject to protective orders or confidentiality, we have a lot of information to share. And if enough of us share it, maybe people start believing.
Yeah. I hear people all the time that say, I took a vacation to Europe and ate like a pig, like a human garbage disposal for 2 weeks. I lost 10 pounds and feel better than ever. Came back to the US and I was sick the next week.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obvious sign that our food, there's so many corruptions, like so many different areas. Food is one of them. And the fact that someone decided after making a bomb with that material and they're like, oh, we're out of war. What should we do? I know. We'll make a chemical to spray it on everyone's food. Like, what? So anyways, yeah, we could go on about that forever. I think personally, if you're a lawyer listening to this, learn how to tell stories. There's books like Story Brand by Donald Miller. You have so many stories. And again, I'm going to refer back to Mike Morris on this one because he shows up on Instagram, like whoever his PR team is, like hats off to you guys. But he is a freaking master storyteller. Like I bought his book, Fireproof. I flew through it and I'm like, just banger story after banger story. We all have those. We just have to learn how to tell them in a way that hooks somebody in, that a marketing agency buys your book and flies through it about how to build and scale a law firm. I'm never going to own a law firm. I don't know. Maybe we should go in business together, Jimmy. I feel like I know how to run law. This is about the 4th book on how to scale a law firm that I've read lately. So, but learning how to put what you're doing into a story and then putting it out on YouTube, 100%. Like that Monsanto's thing, if he told that story right, right? That's like watching a freaking soap opera. Like,
And good
can you
news
imagine how many
is,
people start tuning into that?
well, they're going to make a movie about it. I think Ryan Gosling is playing Brett Weisner.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
That's exciting. I'll
Hmm.
be having popcorn ready because
Yeah.
we're like all organic, don't eat out because of the seed oils. Should basically at this point just move to Europe and be like, oh, we can eat out and eat regular food again. But anyways,
Right.
I've gone down that deep dark rabbit hole so I'll be front row watching that one. Okay, so let's transition into, I've got some questions here for you. So as a solo practitioner, when it does come to marketing, what actually works for you? What are you finding that is the best form of marketing to really draw in those cases that you're looking for?
Lunch. The first thing I did, first year I opened my firm, was I spent, I think, $25,000 on Facebook ads because I was a member of this coaching group. And it was all about, you need to scale, you need to scale, you need to scale. Even though, hey, maybe you don't even know how to run a business yet, or your next door neighbor doesn't even know you're a lawyer. Lost all my money, lost 25 grand, which I couldn't afford to lose. That was real dumb. And one of my dearest friends, Eric Feruzbach, said, hey man, does everyone in your family know you're a lawyer? Like if you called your brother, would he know you do personal injury? I was like, I hope so. He's like, okay, would anyone in your middle school or your high school or your college buddies know you do personal injury? Probably not. So go after them first. You don't need to, you're not big enough and you don't have let's not even go into the budget part, but his whole point was, I bet if you spent 25 grand on lunch, you'd have a lot of cases, not zero cases. So that's what's worked for me, is all been friends and family, and then trying to post to social media. I'm not very good at it. I try hard, but that's a whole nother beast, and you got to really stay consistent. That's the key with social media. So you have to stay consistent, and you got to post 200 videos no matter what, because it's so hard to learn doing it right. And you just have to practice. Like I still can't do it right, but on my goal to 200 videos, hopefully I'll learn along the way. But most lawyers just quit way too early.
Yeah. It's a lot of work producing videos, coming up with content ideas. There's a really good book. And I'm an avid book reader. If you're not reading books, like literally for $20, you just got 20 or 30 years of someone's experience in succeeding in something. So why not? But there's a book called They Ask You Answer. It is an amazing book. Yeah. They Ask You Answer. And it was this guy back in the 90s had a pool company. And long story short, and yes, this is applicable to you lawyers. I know everybody wants to say, oh, running a law firm's different. No, it's not, guys. It's a business. Like at the end of the day, it's just like running a business. But essentially what this guy did is he started a blog. This is before YouTube days even. Started a blog and started thinking, I don't know what to post. So every time someone would call him with a question, he would just answer it on a blog too. Simple as that.
Oh.
And my God, sometimes the most obvious things that are right in front of you just click. And so then when YouTube came around, he started posting videos. Why buy this pool over this pool? And he became the #1 blog read in the US for pool companies. He referred out millions of dollars in pools. He brought in millions of dollars. And he even was as bold to write a blog post to say, here's the top 5 in his area. Here's the top 5 pool companies, and I'll take myself out to be fair, so unbiased. And he got a client off of that post who was researching his competitor before she made a $100,000 purchase, and then thought, why is this company that's a pool company saying that this company, their biggest competitor, is so good? So she went with him instead. Like, I mean, it's mind opening on how simple something is right in front of you, just answering questions that people are asking, but doing it in a way that is entertaining, right? In a way that's storytelling, and it's a way that's engaging. I think personal injuries are setting on a gold mine of storytelling by just telling their client stories. One of my girlfriends, her son was killed in a car accident. The kid he was in there with was drunk. Kid was 15 years old. Gut wrenching, but tell that story. There's so many power behind sharing other people's experience. You don't have to say the name of the person. You can say a 15-year-old kid, but share what you did to fight for that family. Because even if that's completely irrelevant to them, someday they or somebody they know, to your point, will need you, and you're going to be the one that they remember because stories stick. That's before written word was even a thing. We were drawing stories on a wall in a cave, So I think that's a gold mine, and you're 100% right. Another thing, and I agree with you on this one too, just want to chime in. So 99% of you, people from your network don't even know what you do. Like those are warm market referrals. That's free. Go buy your high school buddies dinner or lunch and tell them. Another thing is I've got a girl coming up, Delisi Friday. Her dad, she grew up in personal injury too. Dad was a lawyer, but she helps connect other lawyers together.
Right.
And I talked to a real estate, I think he was a real estate attorney out of DFW. And he said a third of his income, he goes to networking groups all the time. A third of his income comes comes from referring out personal injury cases that he just meets people. They call him and say, I know you're a lawyer. He says, I don't do personal injury. I'm going to refer you to this guy. And a third of his income comes in from just helping people. Yeah, let me connect you to a guy I know. Gold mine, free, free money for you because you're paying it on the back end, but you can never have that referral if you're not putting yourself out there and doing things like letting people know who you are, what you do, buying other attorneys lunch and saying, hey, let's help each other grow. Personal injury, I run ads for them. You're going to get a ton of irrelevant cases, immigration, criminal, family. You get all these different clicks. Instead of saying, we don't do that, sorry, why don't you say, we don't do that, but here's 3 firms that are the top firms in DFW. I'm going to send you their way. Maybe it's goodwill, and maybe they turn around and send you all their personal injury cases, and a third of their income comes from referring you cases, and you didn't have to pay a dime for it. So it's all strategy. There's a strategy behind marketing, but you're 100% right. Step number 1, your inner circle, your neighbors. I 100% agree.
The other thing is like with stories is like tell your top 5 most embarrassing moments in court. 5 videos of 5 different times you made yourself look like an idiot in court. I have plenty of those because I look like an idiot all the time. But those videos have done really well for me. People love those. You don't have to tell the story. All your content doesn't have to be, oh, I got this check for this family who is decapitated. Yeah, have that content, but you can also have fun stuff too. And then some of your personality comes out. And people love hearing stories, embarrassment, because everybody gets embarrassed. So that's another tip for video.
That's a great tip. I recently just was listening to another marketer. They did a study, and this guy, he had a decent following on, I think it was Instagram. So he posts a video of an ice bath, and it was like during a hot day, he gets in, it got a couple thousand views or likes or whatever. So then the next time he posts it, it was in the middle of the morning, it was dark. And when he got in, it was cause it's just, you're just getting up, and just to get yourself under the ice is painful. And when it's a hot day, it's a little different. He's already sweating. It feels good. Did you know that video got 1 million views? Oh. 1 million views. And the only difference was, to your point, he didn't paint this perfect picture of like, oh, I'm so good at this, and look at me, I can get in the ice bath and not react. No, people don't want to see that. They want to see behind the curtains, like what it is. And that's another thing. Like if you're an attorney and you're a hipster, like outside of, you're outside of your suit, show up like that too online. Let people see. If you like to surf, let people see that side. Mix that content in so they can get of the real vibe of who you are, So it's a great point. And people love pain. Why does the news focus on bad things, not good things? So if you can put your ego aside and you out yourself, one of the best personal injury ads I've ever seen was an ambulance chasing ad. Like he's poking fun at it himself, where he's chasing after a guy holding the wallet up.
Yeah, Brian White's commercial. I love that ad.
Yeah. And I'm like, perfect. Yes. Go with the narrative, go with the ugly, and then make it something really funny that people can laugh at with you. And then another personal injury lawyer I know does marketing. His mom is like a superstar in their city because he's the back burner. He's not the main character of a lot of his videos. She is. And people will ask his mom for her autograph. Like that's how big she's gotten on local commercials and stuff. And I'm like, again, someone that could set aside the blockbuster marketing. I'm going to be on a billboard and I'm going to have a lot of commercials because I'm so important and I need everyone to know I'm this big hotshot lawyer, and change the narrative to something funny, or where you're the backup character. You're not the lead role, and it works, So it really is just about thinking outside of the box, being willing to out yourself and saying, man, like I totally like botched this, or having videos for other attorneys saying, what would you have done? Like, man, I face planted. Like, how would you have handled this? Trust me, you want people's opinion on something, you'll get 5 million comment, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with your audience on a TikTok video. If you do a TikTok video of a reaction and you say, who do you think was wrong here in something that's controversial? Holy crap, you'll have 100,000 comments because everybody wants to give you their opinion.
100%.
Okay, Jimmy, this has been a great conversation. We might have to have round 2. I'm going to pull some other people off LinkedIn that are just as angry about this. And maybe you guys form a personal injury fighting group. We'll have to give it a cool name, go after all of this and reform it yourself, really, is what's going to have to happen. It's just going to take a group of people pushing together. And man, one voice is hard to hear, but many voices are hard to ignore. So besides that, is there anything that you're working on that's exciting? Anything fun that you want to share before we go?
Right now, we're doing a lot of work on these Galaxy gas nitrous oxide abuse cases, which has been really, really eye-opening. It's a nitrous oxide. When I was in high school, there's a big thing around whippets. Well, now they have modern day whippets for these giant cans of nitrous oxide that underage kids are using, and it's being sold out of smoke shops by a company called Galaxy Gas. And so me and a team that I'm a part of filed the first class action on that. So that's been really, really fun to work on and interesting, and I think an epidemic that's really kind of taken over the country.
Hey, great social media content. I've never even heard of it. So a bunch of parents, I'm sure, need to know what's going on. And same thing with the vape stuff. I just recently saw an ad about how basically it's affecting people's brains and there's been brain injury and trauma, and
I believe it.
it's crazy. So yeah, post on social media. I want to hear what's going on with it. And if anybody wants to connect with Jimmy, I'm going to leave his contact information, his LinkedIn, everything in the comments below. And before we go, fun question for you, Jimmy. If your life was a movie and every time you walked on set, a theme song played, what would your theme song be?
My theme's either Pony by Genuine, I like that song, or there's a trend on TikTok by this Nickelback song called Hero, although I'm not really a hero figure, but it's one of these songs that's like fits in every movie scene regardless, so I love that song. Maybe one of those two, or yeah, I think one of those two.
Nice. I like it. Awesome. All right, guys, thanks for joining us today for this conversation. Be sure to check out the channel for a lot more interviews with next generation lawyers that are rising up, and then other brilliant industry leaders who can help you grow your firm smarter, not harder. We'll see you guys in the next episode.